If you are anything like me, a warm, buttery bowl of mashed potatoes is the ultimate definition of comfort food. It is a staple on American dinner tables, a must-have at holiday gatherings, and a reliable side dish for those of us over 60 who just want a hearty meal. But if you have been looking at your recent lab results, or if your doctor has mentioned watching your kidney function, you might have heard some scary things about this humble vegetable. Today, we're going to clear up the confusion and find some simple, safe swaps that make life easier. Let's get started. Let's be honest with each other. Right out of the gate, the idea that a potato could be dangerous feels completely counterintuitive. We have been told our entire lives to eat our vegetables. We grew up hearing that potatoes are packed with vitamin C, B6, and fiber. And that is all true for the general population. But when we cross that threshold of age 60, and specifically when we start looking at preserving our kidney health, the rules of the game change dramatically. The very thing that makes a potato a superfood for a teenager, its incredible mineral density, is exactly what makes it a potential hazard for us. The culprit here is potassium. Now, I have spent a lot of time reading through nutritional data and researching how our bodies handle minerals, and potassium is a tricky one. In a healthy body, potassium is fantastic. It helps regulate your blood pressure and keeps your muscles firing. But for us, if our kidneys aren't filtering at 100% efficiency, potassium acts like a silent guest that refuses to leave. It builds up in the bloodstream. And unlike sodium, which you can taste when food is too salty, you cannot taste potassium. You can eat a delicious, fluffy baked potato that tastes perfectly healthy, while unknowingly sending your potassium levels into the danger zone. Here is the reality of the numbers, and this is where I usually gasp when I look at the charts. A single medium-sized baked potato, with the skin on, can contain nearly 900 to 1,000 milligrams of potassium. To put that in perspective, if you are on a kidney-friendly diet where you are trying to stay under 2,000 milligrams a day, that one single potato has just consumed half of your entire daily budget. That doesn't leave room for your breakfast, your lunch, your snacks, or even the protein on your dinner plate. It is a mathematical nightmare. This is what makes the potato such a confusing enemy. It isn't a bag of greasy chips. It isn't a sugary soda. It is a vegetable that comes out of the ground. When you are standing in the grocery store, holding a bag of russets, it feels like the responsible, wholesome choice. You might be thinking, I'm cooking from scratch. I'm avoiding processed foods. I'm doing everything right. And yet, if you prepare that potato the traditional way, baking it, roasting it, or frying it, you are essentially serving yourself a concentrated dose of the one mineral your kidneys are struggling to process. The danger is compounded because potatoes are rarely eaten in isolation. Think about a beef stew. You have the potassium from the meat, the potassium from the tomato base, and then you add chunks of potatoes. Suddenly, one bowl of soup is a potassium bomb. This hidden accumulation is what catches so many of us off guard. We think we are eating healthy home-cooked meals, but we are accidentally stressing our kidneys with every bite. It's not that the potato is evil, but in its natural, unaltered state, it is simply too potent for a sensitive system to handle safely. This brings us to the most frustrating part of the equation, the part that actually keeps me up at night when I'm trying to plan a menu. Knowing the numbers is one thing. Seeing that 900 milligram danger sign on a nutrition chart is logical. But actually, living without potatoes is an entirely different emotional battle. It feels like a punishment. When a doctor or a dietitian hands you a list of foods to avoid and potatoes are right at the top, it feels like they have just stripped away the foundation of American comfort cooking. It is not just about removing an ingredient. It is about dismantling the way we have eaten for 60 years. Think about what happens when you try to follow that no potato rule strictly. You start to realize just how deeply ingrained this vegetable is in our daily lives. You go to a diner for breakfast with your friends, and everyone is ordering eggs with home fries or hash browns. The smell of those crispy, golden brown potatoes wafts over the table, and you are stuck asking for sliced tomatoes or dry toast. You feel like the odd one out. You feel like the sick person at the table who can't participate in the shared joy of a hearty breakfast. It isolates you socially, making every meal out a negotiation rather than a relaxation. Then there is the struggle at home. If you are the one doing the cooking, maybe you are cooking for a spouse or grandkids who don't have kidney issues. They want the mashed potatoes with the roast beef. They want the potato salad at the barbecue. So now you are stuck in this terrible position of cooking 2 separate meals, or worse, cooking a delicious pot of potatoes for everyone else, and forcing yourself to exercise willpower that honestly none of us have in unlimited supply. You watch them eat, and you feel that pang of deprivation. You start to resent the dietary restrictions. You might even find yourself thinking, what is the point of living longer if I can't enjoy the food I love? It is also incredibly confusing because the internet is full of conflicting advice. You might go online and read one article that says, sweet potatoes are a superfood substitute. So you rush out and buy those, only to find out later that sweet potatoes are actually higher in potassium than white potatoes. You feel betrayed. You tried to do the right thing. You tried to find a healthy swap, and you ended up in a worse position. It makes you feel like you can't trust your own judgment. You find yourself standing in the produce aisle, staring at the root vegetables, turnips, rutabagas, parsnips, wondering if they are safe or if they are just another trap waiting to spike your levels. The mental load of constantly second-guessing every vegetable is exhausting. And let's talk about the texture. We have all tried the substitutes. I have made the mashed cauliflower. I have tried the mashed turnips. And while they are decent vegetables in their own right, let's stop pretending they are potatoes. They don't have that starchiness. They don't absorb gravy the same way. Mashed cauliflower can be watery or have that distinct sulfur smell that just doesn't scream comfort. When you are craving a baked potato, you are craving that specific, fluffy, dry heat texture that melts in your mouth with a pat of butter. Substituting it with steamed cauliflower feels like a consolation prize that nobody actually wants. It leaves you feeling unsatisfied, which usually leads to snacking later on foods that might be even worse for you. This agitation goes deeper than just cravings. It touches on our identity and our autonomy. As we get older, we lose control over certain things. Maybe our mobility isn't what it used to be. Maybe our energy levels are lower. Food is often the last bastion of control we have. We choose what we put on our plate. So when a medical condition dictates that we have to banish a staple food that has been with us since childhood, it feels like a loss of independence. It feels like our bodies are betraying us. We didn't eat junk food. We ate a vegetable that grew in the dirt, and now we are being told it's poison. That sense of unfairness is hard to swallow. Furthermore, the cold turkey approach rarely works long-term. I have seen so many people try to cut potatoes out completely for a month. They are miserable. They are grumpy at dinner time. And then, inevitably, they crack. They go to a wedding or a potluck, and they binge. They eat 3 servings of potato gratin because they have been depriving themselves for so long. And that binge is far more dangerous for the kidneys than a controlled, moderate consumption would have been. The guilt that follows is heavy. You worry you've done irreversible damage. You worry you've failed the test. It creates a cycle of restriction and guilt that is unhealthy for your mind and your body. We are left with a massive problem. On one hand, the potassium levels in a standard potato are undeniably dangerous for us. We cannot ignore the science. On the other hand, a life completely void of potatoes is miserable, socially awkward, and difficult to sustain. We need a middle ground. We need a way to intervene. We need to find a loophole in nature's design that allows us to keep the food we love without overloading our kidneys. We need to stop asking, "Can I eat this?" and start asking, "How can I change this so I can eat it?" Because if we don't find a way to make peace with the potato, we are going to be fighting a losing battle against our own cravings for the rest of our lives. Here is the good news I promised you, and honestly, learning this technique felt like unlocking a secret level in a video game. We do not have to say goodbye to potatoes forever. We just have to change the way we introduce them to water. The solution lies in a simple scientific fact that works in our favor. Potassium is water-soluble. It dissolves. Unlike some other nutrients that cling stubbornly to the food fibers, potassium is looking for an escape route. If we provide the right environment, we can actually encourage that excess potassium to leave the potato and enter the water, which we then pour right down the drain. This process is called leaching, but I prefer to think of it as washing the danger away. However, simply soaking a whole potato in cold water isn't enough. That is, the old advice that doesn't really move the needle. To truly make a potato safe for a kidney-friendly diet, to transform that high-risk 900 milligram bomb into a manageable side dish, we have to be aggressive. We have to use a technique known as the double boil method. This is the one thing from the title of this video, and it is the absolute game changer for anyone over 60 watching their labs. Let me walk you through exactly how I do this in my kitchen, step by step, so you can visualize just how easy it is. The first rule is that the skin has to go. I know, the skin is tasty and has fiber, but it is also a potassium barrier. We need to expose the flesh of the potato. So, step 1, peel those potatoes completely. Once they are peeled, we need to maximize the surface area. If you boil a whole potato, the water can only reach the outside. But if you dice that potato into tiny half-inch cubes, suddenly you have exposed thousands of surfaces where the water can do its work. The smaller the cube, the more potassium can escape. Next, rinse them under warm water to wash off that initial starchy film. Now, here is where the magic happens. Put your potato cubes in a pot and fill it with water. Use a lot of water, twice the amount of the potatoes. Bring it to a boil. Let it bubble away aggressively for about 10 minutes. If you watch the pot, you will see the water turning cloudy, maybe even foamy. That is what we want. That water is now becoming saturated with the minerals we are trying to avoid. In a normal recipe, you would just keep boiling until they are soft. But we aren't doing that. We are going to stop. Take the pot over to the sink and dump all that water out. This is the critical moment. By pouring out that first batch of boiling water, you are physically removing a massive chunk of the extracted potassium. It is gone. It is in the sewer system now, not in your body. Then you fill the pot back up with fresh, clean water. Put it back on the stove and boil the potatoes again until they are fork tender. This second boil acts as a rinse cycle, pulling out even more of the remaining minerals. By the time those potatoes are soft enough to mash, studies suggest you have reduced the potassium content by at least 50%, and in some cases up to 75%, depending on how small you cut them and how much water you used. Think about the math on that. We took a potato that was roughly 1,000 milligrams, and by spending an extra 10 minutes at the stove, we have wrestled it down to maybe 200 or 300 milligrams. That puts it in the same safety category as a serving of green beans or corn. It moves the potato from the forbidden list to the occasional treat list. Now, I have to be transparent with you about the trade-off. When we leach out the potassium, we are also leaching out other water-soluble vitamins, like vitamin C and the B vitamins. We are essentially stripping the nutritional value of the vegetable to make it chemically safe for our filtration system. It's not the most nutrient-dense way to eat, but let's be real. At this stage in our lives, if we are eating mashed potatoes, we aren't eating them for the vitamin C. We are eating them for the soul-satisfying comfort. We can get our vitamins from berries or supplements. We need the potato for our sanity. The beauty of the double boil method is that it preserves the structural integrity of the starch. When you drain that second pot of water and dump the potatoes into a bowl, they look exactly like normal boiled potatoes. They steam the same way. When you take your mashier to them, they crumble and fluff up just like you remember. They don't turn into a watery mush like cauliflower does. They still have that earthy, hearty aroma. You have essentially performed a chemistry experiment in your kitchen. You have taken control of the ingredient. Instead of being a passive victim of the potassium content, you have actively modified it. It is incredibly empowering. I remember the first time I did this and served myself a scoop of mashed potatoes after months of avoiding them. I felt like I had cheated the system. I had my comfort food, but I also had the peace of mind knowing that I had manually removed the majority of the risk. This method works for almost any preparation where the potato is cooked in water. Want to make potato salad? Double boil the cubes first, let them cool, and then dress them. Want home fries? This is a great trick. Double boil the cubes until they are just tender. Drain them, dry them off, and then pan fry them quickly with some onions to get that crispy edge. You get the crunch and the flavor of the home fry, but the center of the potato has already been detoxed of its high potassium load. It is important to remember that this doesn't make the potato potassium-free. It is not a free pass to eat 5 pounds of mashed potatoes. It is a reduction strategy. It turns a no into a yes in moderation. But for those of us who thought we would never see a potato on our dinner plate again, yes in moderation is a victory worth celebrating. It gives us back our holiday dinners. It gives us back our Sunday roasts. It restores a piece of our culinary heritage that we thought was lost. Now that you have successfully navigated the chemistry of the double boil method, we need to address the final piece of the puzzle, flavor and routine. Because I will be honest with you, when you wash out the minerals, you are also washing out some of that natural earthy saltiness that potatoes have. If you just mash them up plain, they might taste a little flat compared to what you are used to. The instinct is to immediately reach for the salt shaker to compensate, but that defeats the purpose of a heart-healthy, kidney-safe diet. We need to be smarter than that. Treat these leached potatoes as a blank canvas for kidney-safe aromatics. My absolute favorite trick is to roast a whole head of garlic in the oven while the potatoes are boiling. Squeeze that soft, sweet, roasted garlic into the mash with a little bit of unsalted butter or a high-quality olive oil. Add some fresh chopped chives, rosemary or parsley for color, and a bite of freshness. You are adding robust, safe flavors back and forth to replace the potassium you took out. You end up with a side dish that tastes gourmet and intentional rather than bland, diet food. I also want to address the hassle factor. I know what you are thinking. Who has time to boil water twice just for a side dish? It is a valid concern. My advice is to embrace batch cooking. Since this process takes a bit of extra time and effort, don't just do it for one meal. On a Sunday, buy a 5-pound bag. Peel, chop, and double boil the entire thing. Mash them up, portion them into half-cup servings, and freeze them. They reheat beautifully. This way, on a busy Wednesday night when you are tired and craving comfort, you don't have to wait 45 minutes. You can just grab a safe portion from the freezer, heat it up, and enjoy. We also need to be realistic about those portions. Even with the double boil method, these are not free foods. They are reduced foods. A safe serving size is typically about a half cup. Think the size of half a tennis ball or a standard ice cream scoop. That might look small if you are used to a mountain of mash, but if you savor it, it is enough to satisfy the craving without tipping the scales. Pair it with very low potassium vegetables, like cabbage or green beans, to bulk up the plate without bulking up the mineral load. This process effectively gives you your life back. You can go to Thanksgiving dinner, bring your own dish of safe garlic mashed potatoes, and sit at the table eating the same thing as everyone else. No one even needs to know you boiled them twice. You aren't the person with the restricted medical meal anymore. you're just enjoying dinner. That psychological shift from feeling restricted to feeling resourceful is just as important for your health as the numbers on your lab report. So don't fear the potato, just respect it. Understand that as we age, our relationship with certain ingredients has to evolve. By taking the time to peel, chop, and double boil, you are showing your body respect while still nurturing your soul with the foods you love. It takes a little extra effort, but for that first bite of creamy, warm comfort, I think it is absolutely worth it. Thanks for watching, and here's to good food and good health.